when you come to a brand agency, what do you want, right? You want a mood board, right? You want colors, you want fonts, you want visuals, right? And so almost having to kind of reorient the perspective and say, okay, wait a minute, we're going to get there. But the first thing that we want to make sure that we're airtight on, right, is our position, right? Another way of saying position is strategy, right? If you think about it literally and figuratively, it's like, okay, where do we want to place ourselves? Where do we want this business to be positionally, right? In the market, right? And again, it goes back to those foundational questions that you and I spoke to, right? So like, who are we, right? Who do we serve, right? What do we do, right? And how is it different, right? So those are sort of four fundamental questions that we want to work through. And then from those answers, right, we want to craft a unifying narrative.
And we're back with another insightful episode of Right on the Money, the podcast dedicated to helping business owners overcome their obstacles, grow their business, and lead greatly. I'm your host, Janae K. Wright. Along for the ride with me, as always, is my co-host, Deshaun White. Today's episode is all about strategic brand marketing for your organization, a topic that is vital in today's business landscape. Our guest today is none other than Obinna Onungwa, the CEO of strategic brand marketing agency Powered by Q. And let me just say, the way Obi illuminates brand marketing concepts is unmatched. And by the end of this conversation, you will be equipped with actionable insights to take your marketing efforts to the next level.
Obinna is the CEO and founder of Powered by Q. Powered by Q is a strategic brand marketing agency helping entrepreneurs thrive online and offline. They work with visionary leaders seeking to balance both bold strategic thinking with beautiful brand marketing that their clients can take to the bank. Founded in Brooklyn, New York, Powered by Q has proudly served over 150 clients across 17 industries in 4 continents through a mighty staff of 9 team members, and that is no small feat. Obinna holds a BA in African History from the University of Maryland College Park and an MS in Finance from Howard University. Obinna resides in Rockville, Maryland with his lovely wife, young daughter, and newborn son. In today's CEO Quick Deep Dive, we are zooming in on Obinna's brand marketing agency, Powered by Q, and its commitment to supporting underrepresented companies build beautifully bold brands. Additionally, we'll touch on his podcast, the Visionary Leaders Podcast, where he explores actionable strategies for creating, refining, and capitalizing on your brand vision.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Really, really excited about today's conversation. Again, really, really grateful for the opportunity. I look forward to this.
No, absolutely. One of the things that I remember when I started my business and when I'm like going through all the iterations of how to get clients, the first thing someone taught me was the whole concept of color psychology, right? So I built my company based on a certain color. I created my business cards. I created my website, but that's not all there is to brand marketing, right? Like what in the experts in description, what is brand marketing?
Yeah, so brand marketing for me very much is about the integration of vision and storytelling. I really, when I hear brand, I always begin from a place of vision. What exactly are we looking to bring to the market? Who are we looking to bring this solution to? And what is our method, approach, or process in fulfilling or delivering this value, right? And our ability to really kind of capture all of that in a story, right, that unites both partners, employees, as well as clients is key, right? So when we think about great brands, they're really able to unite those various communities, right, through a narrative, through a story, through a belief system, if you will, right? So that's really how I approach brand. And then we add that marketing piece, right? It's really about integrating that, right? So once you get clear on that story, what are the methods or the processes that you use to deliver and communicate that story, right? At scale. So that's kind of how I think about brand marketing.
So it's really interesting. One of the concepts that I've heard, and I would love your take on it, is the idea of like the houses with the red door, right? Like everybody feels like brand marketing is the red door, right? I think the conversation me and you had before about what brand marketing is actually what's behind the door, right,
Yep,
of the
exactly.
entire story. So can you
That's right.
explain like what is some misconceptions that people have about brand marketing, and what is your take on how do we pull it out to a different level to expand it to really get them what they need?
Yeah, well, I think the illustration that you led with is great, right? Again, you went right to it, right? You went to a color, right? And you spoke to a metaphor of differentiation, right? And so I think again that is yes, that is what most people commonly associate with brand. But I love where you went, right? And that is okay. Well, what is behind the door? What's in the house, right? And so really thinking about your brand or your house, right, from the foundation, right? So foundationally, we're building this house, we're establishing our foundation, we're very intentionally designing a home system, if you will, right? So how does that home operationalize, right? How does it effectively work? And how do we now deliver value from this house? Then I don't want to say last, but I think in terms of order of operation, then we can kind of concern ourselves, right, with the color of the door, right? So if that analogy makes sense, it's like okay, well let's ensure that the inputs of the house are solid, right? That we've got quality materials, right? That we've got a clear strategy, that we have a clear plan, right? That we've counted our costs first, right? And we've put in place a plan for sustainability, right, to deliver said value at scale. Then from there, right, we can then make certain visual decisions, right, that complement or accent this value that we've created. Hope that illustration makes sense.
No, I think that's exactly what it is. Right? I think in any aspect of the different tools you use to run your business, the strategy behind it is as important as that final product, right? Is that picture that goes around of like the the little ice cap that's above the ocean, but nobody sees how deep it goes because
Exactly.
the part that has
Exactly.
power to it.
That's right. That's exactly right. Right. Or to build on that illustration, right? We overwhelmingly focus on the tree or the leaves, but it's really those roots, right, that go underneath the soil, though, right? The depth of those roots that's ultimately supporting, right, this entire structure, right, that meets the eye.
So one of my biggest concerns when I talk about brand and I talk about the brand of my company, and I think a lot of CEOs who are growing their business has the same connotation, right? Do you need to or should you separate yourself from your brand? Because the story is like for a CEO, a founder of a company, the story is you. But do
Yeah.
you really want to have that connection being that tightly woven to it, or do you want to separate the two to make a different kind of brand from the company?
Yeah. No. That's a question that I get all the time, and I am increasingly becoming a fan of integrating our personal brand narratives into our companies. I think we are living in the era of the personality driven brand. Consumers very much uh, are making conscious buying decisions, right? And by conscious buying decisions, that is okay. I know that I'm voting with my dollars, and I want to ensure that these dollars are going to entities, are going to organizations, are going to teams that are reflective of my values, right? Or reflective of my points of view, if you will, right? And so, to the extent that a CEO, a founder, can really bring their personality, bring their own narrative, bring their own experiences to their company, that really personalizes and humanizes, right, their services and products in ways that can't be done otherwise.
But that can get dangerous, right? Like right now, I'm thinking Elon Musk and Twitter, right? That can
Sure.
get dangerous when the personality of the, I guess not the founder, but the leader is such, whatever it is that he is, can affect the company. So like I think that's part of the what people get nervous from, right? I'm in a world where I'm dealing with nonprofits who do different things around the world, right? Do different things for organizations. But as a black male,
Yeah.
sometimes I want to say something that I feel like, oh, this might endanger the brand of my company. So
Sure.
what is that conversation? Without going like the PR route, what is that
No,
conversation?
no, no. Again, you beat me to it. You're already going the PR route, right? So I think the first thing that I would say very specifically in the example that you just gave is that's really where great PR thinkers, right, can come in to help cultivate, right, that external presentation, right, of your personal brand. And to the point that you alluded to, right, it's going to have some strategic nuance, right, from person to person, founder to founder, depending on your objectives, depending on exactly what your brand system is, right. That's going to determine how much of yourself, right, you lead with. And in the Elon Musk example that you gave, right, I have a sneaking suspicion, right, that his polarizing personality is strategic, right? It gives the brands that he supports a certain degree of edge, right? There's also an authenticity and almost an unapologetic attitude, right? That those who buy into those brands respect and are attracted to, right?
True. Yes.
So whether we look at Tesla or we're looking at Twitter or SpaceX, I mean, all of these are radical, unapologetic, arguably world-changing brands, right? Now, again, it remains to be seen where Twitter and X will land ultimately. So I think we all have front row seats in terms of what's happening here. I'm hearing mixed things, right? There's some folks are leaving the platform. Some folks are, hey, I'm a diehard Twitter person till I die. I don't care who owns it. So again, it's I would say ultimately at the highest level, I am sure that he has PR people. I'm sure he has brand people. I'm sure he has very, very smart storytellers around him that are being deliberate, right, in how they frame and curate that Elon Musk brand.
You're probably right. I mean, he has too much money not to be spending it strategically, right? And understanding how to deal with certain people. Because I think you're right. There's a lot of people who are following him even more
Yep,
because of that arrogance that he shows to the world. And then
yep,
the idea that he's a billionaire makes people think that he's the greatest leader, so they're going to follow him regardless of what he does and what he says.
yep.
But I think
And then
the
there's some folks that, and I imagine that there's a base of people that also just separate his personality from the product, right? So there's also an element of okay, I don't exactly love him, but I love my Tesla Y, right? And and I love the extensive network of chargers across the United States, right? So you kind of pick and choose, right? But I think the key thing here that we're ultimately driving at is the A word that everybody throws out, and that's authenticity, right? That's this idea, right, that people are attracted to real people, right? Real people are attracted to real people, and so there's something, whether you agree with them or you don't agree with them, there's something that seems honest. There's something that seems candid. There's something that seems straightforward. There's something that seems a little unrefined, right? And I think those messages tend to perform the best, right, in our immediate social media sort of world that we're living in, right, where tweets and posts and uploads, right, are very often unedited, right. Um,
so is
so
is the idea of a new company, right, coming to you talking like, here's what I have. What is that first engagement with you of like, all right, this is what you need to start doing to start moving this into a brand marketing strategy for them?
yeah, so our very first step is always going to be positioning, and positioning for us, right, is really that sort of foundational step of branding, right? And very often than not, our clients tend to find that counterintuitive, right? Because when you come to a brand agency, what do you want, right? You want a mood board, right? You want colors, you want fonts, you want visuals, right? And so almost having to kind of reorient the perspective and say, okay, wait, we're going to get there. But the first thing that we want to make sure that we're airtight on, right, is our position, right? Another way of saying position is strategy, right? If you think about it literally and figuratively, it's like, okay, where do we want to place ourselves? Where do we want this business to be positionally, right? In the market, right? And again, it goes back to those foundational questions that you and I spoke to, right? So like, who are we, right? Who do we serve, right? What do we do, right? And how is it different, right? So those are sort of four fundamental questions that we want to work through. And then from those answers, right, we want to craft a unifying narrative, right? And to the point that you spoke to earlier, depending on the business, there's a spectrum here in terms of how much of the founder story we want to integrate in the business, how much of the sort of business story do we want to take the forefront. It's gonna vary, right, from brand to brand. These days, we're seeing more and more desire, right, for integrating my personal narrative, right, into the business. And so that positioning exercise is foundational first step.
So it sounds like you're saying like even before colors or even website and all those, maybe even if the name, right, the conversation. If you, where would you like to get a client at in their development of their business? Where would be the perfect spot for them to come to you in development of their business? Like, all right, if I get you at this point, we're gonna have a great time moving forward. Where's that spot?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Janae. So broadly speaking, I think there's really two buckets of clients that we see. Client A is a first time entrepreneur, usually is sort of coming to the table red hot, about this God given vision that they've got to execute on. Again, I love these folks because they're very personally invested in what it is that they are looking to execute. But more often than not, many of them, right, have not done the foundational sort of first order work, right, of kind of really, really thinking through these big questions, right? And I think the deeper we go on those questions, right, the greater chance we have, right, of sustainable success, which is the goal, right? So I would say that's client A, and then client B, Janae, which I would say is probably preferred, right, at this phase of my journey, right. And this is typically a more mature business owner that is looking to rebrand, right?
Okay.
So in many instances, they may have a very strong offline business. Maybe they've been in business for 10 years, 7 to 8 figures in revenue. They likely have built a business in in a world that no longer exists, right? In market conditions that are no longer true today, and so there's this healthy anxiety around, okay, well, how do I sort of reposition, rebrand my company, in an AI, machine learning,
Yes.
digital first world, right? And how do I rethink my story, right? How do I think this business story, and like where do I begin to pull all of this together, right? That's probably our preferred client, and that client very often recognizes, right, that branding is a continuum, right? It's not a destination, right? So it's not something that you do and then you're done with it, but rather it's a garden, right? So again, we're sowing some seeds and we're cultivating, right, this thing that is brand, right, for multiple harvests and multiple iterations and reiterations.
I mean, I like the fact you mentioned the whole idea of rebranding because I think it's something that is necessary but extremely hard to do, right? And
Sure.
I'm talking from the perspective of a founder, right? I
Yeah.
built this baby. Those colors were mine. I designed that. I came up with all this information, and then someone's coming in and telling me, "Hey, we need to make some tweaks this year. Or we need to make some tweaks to how you do things." And it kind of like giving people the ability to mourn what that
Yeah.
is going to be
I, li-
is
I
hard
I
to do.
love I love the language. I
But how do
love the
you how,
language.
like explaining to someone that changing brand or changing the branding, not necessarily the
Yeah.
brand,
Good.
is two different
Good
things, right?
distinction.
Because the core
Excellent.
of who the company is will never change, but it
That's
might
right.
be tied, the way the aspects of like colors and conversations and the words you use may have to change every couple of years, but the
Exactly.
the core. That's why I like the way you mentioned that. Like, is that core of who the company isn't changing. It's just the idea of what we're putting out there to express who we are.
Good. That's awesome. Thank you for that, man. Great question, Janae. So, um, I like that you used the term mourn, right? I mean, what a powerful term to use, right? Because to your point, right, we have these attachments, right, to this thing that is brand, and I think that there is, if I can say this respectfully, right, I think that there's a certain maturity that we must grow into, right, on our entrepreneurial journey, where we have to ask ourselves the big questions, right, and that is that, who is this brand for, right? Is it for me, right? Is it for the market that I'm serving? Is it for my team? Right? Is it for my partners? Is it for all of us, right? Perhaps it's for all of us, but more often than not, right? If revenue is a challenge, right, which very often tends to be a challenge for many of us, well, then we've got to be able to speak to the customer, right? And so at any point in our growth curve, right, if we hit a point of stagnancy, or if we get to a place where, okay, that message is not getting through, right, we're not making that connection, right, that we're seeking to make. But then we have to humbly come back to the drawing board, and we've got to rethink and reimagine. And that's not just healthy for businesses; that's healthy for people, right? So I think we're kind of living in the era, right, of learning, unlearning, and relearning. I'm sure you've sort of heard this in the culture, right? And when we think about that, okay, well, presumably that's a healthy thing to do, right? That's about checking your working assumptions, right? Particularly the ones that you're holding on to really, really tight. And more often than not, the things that we're holding on to tight fisted, right? Those also tend to be the very things that are holding us back, right, from the next level, right? And so, to your point, right, it's a delicate conversation, and it's a conversation that I approach really from a place of what is our goal here, right? That first order question of what are we trying to accomplish is always and will always be relevant, right? And it helps us to just reorient, anchor ourselves back to our core values, right? What we are here to do, right? And then objectively evaluating, well, are we doing it, right? To the extent that we aspire to. And if the answer is no, then okay, maybe we need to make some adjustments.
No, I like that. I think looking back at the history of Primus, I think in our 20 years history, we've had three different names, three completely different colors. But when I look back at how that history came up, the first two names and colors were because I liked it, right? It was
Yeah.
about me. It wasn't about the clients that I'm looking for. It wasn't about the connotation of what I want clients to think about. But in that
Yep.
third name and that third color, right? The color blue, loyalty, intelligence, like professionalism. The name Primus is all about I want my client, Primus meaning first, I want my clients to think of us as the first place to go when they need assistance with certain things. So then we became much more uh, deliberate about
Yes.
the colors we chose and the name we chose, right? So how do we talk to those first two Janaes, right? Those first two guys who um, created their branding based on their own personal wants instead of looking towards the client, looking towards the staff, looking towards like building a professional organization.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, right? And I think uh, a framework that I've been thinking about a lot lately is attraction, comprehension, conversion, right? And I'll kind of step into that in the following way, right? So very, very often than not, we when we have a brand conversation, we almost always start with attraction, right? Or what we believe is attractive. That's why we're so quick to jump to colors. Like you and me have spoken to colors multiple times over this conversation today, right? And that just seems to be this very natural place that people go to is okay, hey, no, if we're having a branding conversation, then we've got to begin with attraction. We've got to begin with the visual, right? But I like to really take the client, right, to conversion, right? So essentially, it's turning the model upside down, and it's going to conversion, right? Okay, so hey, I think we're here, right, to make money, right? Okay, we're here to make money. Awesome. Okay, well, how do we make money? Okay, well, hey, we have to sell this service. We have to sell this product. Okay, well, in what quantity, right? Do we need to sell this service and sell this product? Okay, well, we need to sell at this particular rate over this particular time period. Okay, wonderful, right? Well, in order to do that, right, we need to reach our market, presumably. Yes, we need to reach our market. Uh, do you believe that what we're currently putting out into the market in terms of our messaging is it being understood, right? And that tends to be like a weird question, right? But it's really at that to me is really the intersection, right, of the brand marketing conversation. And that is comprehension. Like, are we even getting through? Like as founders, we've meditated on this message over and over again. We've said it to ourselves in the shower. We've talked about it. It's so clear to us, right? But it's almost like this disassociation and like, wait a second, the folks I'm looking to reach, right, with my value proposition, they're not getting it, right? They're not understanding it. And so again, we need to sort of revisit and retailor how we are presenting this. And then we then come to the attraction piece. So I hope that makes some sense, Janae. I think to the point you're getting at, it really is a retraining around taking a pause from the visuals, right? And really, really looking to lock in on the growth goal here, right? And to the extent that we can speak that shared language of growth, right? Then I think we can have a meaningful conversation around brand. But again, to the point you're making, Janae, it is delicate. And again, I think knowing what I know now, right, and having had the experiences that I've had, uh, even my understanding on qualification and just kind of like what kinds of clients really make sense for different types of brand conversations, right? So again, if you're looking for a new logo and that's all, hey, I need a new logo. We might not be the agency for you, right? But again, I think if you're really looking to integrate your brand story and present it to the market, right, in a way that's both beautiful, but beyond beautiful, Janae, really clear, right? Like free, like for the people that see your banner, Primus, that's for me, right? Like that's the exact solution for my problem. That is the exact guy that I want to work with, right? Being able to put your offer out that clearly and that attractively, right? To me, that's the high point. We've done our job. We've done our job right, right? If when we make the presentation, we're attracting the right employees, we're attracting the right partners, we're attracting the right agencies, we're doing something right.
I think you are, as I said earlier, the way you illuminate what this is perfect, right? I think for the way that I started my company is all about how do we bring this level of thinking away from the Fortune 500s down to the small business, right? Because that is what's going to
Yeah,
make the greatest change in our community. Because someone
totally.
putting those things together, that means their businesses grow. That means their impact grows. The more people they hire, the more the community gets enriched. So when you put those things together, I
We had a shared vision in that way. That's why you and I connected, right? So I think there was a shared understanding of, okay, hey, we want to offer the best of our gifts to our community in a way that has lasting change, right? So again, this transcends dollars and cents. And to the point that you're making, right? I think we were able to sort of bring together our superpowers to drive our brands forward, drive our companies forward.
Obi, thank you so much for joining us today, man. This was a great conversation. I definitely want to do it again so we can go a little bit deeper. But I hope everyone at home and listening to this podcast grabbed those nuggets that he gave you, right? There was two big ones that he gave you about how you look at your business, how you start the branding conversation, and where I think that's what's most important to me. When and where you start a branding conversation. It can be at any point, but understanding the background of what you're trying to build is so important to an organization. So Obi,
That's
again,
right.
thank you for being here, man.
Janae, thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
This show is brought to you by Julo.shop. Experience more than just shopping at Julo.shop. It's a celebration of amazing products from Black-owned brands. Our product partners are like you and me. They had a vision, and now they're a part of the Julo family. We promise to bring you quality, convenience, and the selection that you deserve. Discover, experience, and enjoy something new at Julo.shop today. Visit www.julo.shop.
So we're back with round two, the CEO quick deep dive. So we have a couple of questions we want to ask you just about your business, about the different things that you've been doing, and just to get a lot more details from you on how things are going. So
Totally.
can you take us take us on a journey of your career and what key experiences shaped your milestones of where you are right now.
Yeah. No, how much time do you have? I'm joking, right? No, I give you the short version. I think my career path has been very unorthodox, right? Particularly given my cultural heritage. Proud Nigerian American, born and raised in DC. There was really uh, a calling on my life that was not my own, right? My parents essentially decided for me, hey, you're going to go to school and you're going to be an engineer. I went to University of Maryland College Park engineering program for all of 1 year before leaving, right, for something, for story, right, for meaning, for purpose, right. I had so many big questions around race, politics, economics, why the world works the way that it is, right. And so these are the things that I chased, right, in undergrad, much to my parents' disappointment. I then graduated in a very, very difficult market, but picked up a few sales jobs, and sales was easy money for me, right? So hey, you guys are going to pay me to make friends and get people to buy things. I mean, sign me up. So a number of different sales stints, which was for me probably the best business school in the on the planet, right? I mean, learned a lot of things. Um, Traveled abroad for some time. I was in Ghana, where I worked with an organization called Meltwater Entrepreneur School of Technology, supporting entrepreneurs across West Africa. Very, very meaningful experience. And I think that's where I really caught the bug on like economic empowerment and sort of supporting entrepreneurs of color. I then made a U-turn back to DC, picked up a master's degree in finance before coming to New York to work for a number of different startups. And then I launched a product called Q. Q is a mobile application, a mobile marketplace for barbers. Very meaningful experience. Wasn't able to raise the capital needed to really scale that product. But in the process, though, made friends with arguably some of the most important business owners in our community, right? And those are barbershop owners, right? And so
Same here.
so these guys actually, funny enough, really opened up the door for branding and storytelling, because I caught them at this very interesting intersection where it's like they were all reaching this place where there was no turning back. They needed technology, right? They could, the days of going into the shop and waiting for 3 hours are gone. They all had to do online booking. They all needed to get websites. They all needed to figure out social media. And so this was really a training ground, right, to sort of support those businesses. And that's really how Powered by Q was born, right? It was kind of born on the back of a product pivot, and it was really born, right, like, from the ground up, right, like serving an underserved community, right, that needed to figure out technology, needed to figure out storytelling, needed to figure out visuals, right. And so through that, we went from this one niche to multiple niches, right? So we sort of started with barbershops, we moved over to salons, and we started working with estheticians, then models, then lawyers, then doctors, and all of these different folks in our community kind of needed the same thing, and that is, okay, like how do we figure out this brand storytelling thing? How do we figure out this digital marketing thing? And how can you help me? So that's an expedited summary of my very interesting career path.
I love the fact that, like, like we said before, me and you connect on so many different levels. The fact that you mentioned barbers as one of the places where you started, for me, I've always told people I feel like barbers are our first vision of entrepreneurship, right? Of social entrepreneurship. Like they're in the community, they're making money, they're
Totally.
helping, they're training other barbers, they're giving kids the
Exactly.
opportunity to make
Exactly.
money after school.
Love
So
it.
that initial impact that they have
Yeah.
is awesome. I think it made a lot of us become entrepreneurs just from seeing what they were able to accomplish.
Yeah, you articulated that way better than me. Even as you said that, I had never quite thought about it that way. But you're exactly right. They're able to operate across all those different dimensions. And I think the impact it has on you is it helps you think about profit differently, right? So instead of it just being sort of this hard line on your financial statements, right? You also measure in terms of social impact,
So,
right?
yep.
You measure in terms of even local jobs, right? Jobs on the block, right? That we don't even think about. There's an entire economy and ecosystem, right? That flows out of those shops, right? And so, yeah, real beautifully put.
So your role as CEO of Powered by Q and your podcast, the Visionary Leader podcast, seem to align with the idea of leadership and vision. How do these two ventures complement each other? And how does your podcast contribute to your agency's mission?
Yeah, no, great question, right? So I think in our position statement, right, we speak to helping visionary leaders, right? And so that is really how we've positioned our clients, right? So the people that we serve, right, are visionary leaders, right? And as you gather from our conversation today, right, vision for me, or the story for me, right, is the anchor of the brand. And leadership in practice, that's entrepreneurship, right? I mean, sales, marketing, recruiting, management, right, operations, right, all of that is leadership. And so, yeah, the Visionary Leader podcast is really about providing a platform for all these folks we've mentioned, right? Different entrepreneurs to come on board, share their experiences, share their stories, share their process, talk about team building, and really get into the trenches of the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to building a brand, right? And the hope is that our audience, right, can really walk away with a fuller and more holistic understanding, right, of what brand is. And I think we kind of beat that one down, right? So again, it's not a colorway, right? It's not your visuals, right? And so again, if you get anything from those episodes, right, you're coming away with a much larger view on your brand.
In today's fast-paced and digitally connected world, brands face complex challenges. How does your agency navigate the complexities of branding, and what strategies do you employ to help clients stand out in their respective markets?
Wow, that's a really big question, right? But I think I'm going to respond with something that you probably wouldn't expect, right? And that is writing. That's writing. And what I mean by that is, irrespective of where our clients, our partners, our employees sit when it comes to their own writing ability, we have found that writing as a daily practice, right, is in and of itself is a clarifying process. It allows us all to sort of get our ideas out of us, right, in a very raw format. And we find that to the extent that we consistently commit to that process, right, it actually gives us seemingly insignificant stories, right, that we can take, and we can convert that into social media, right? We can convert that into an email campaign. We can convert that into an asset, right, that actually builds the brand, right? So writing kind of serves a twofold process of both personal clarity, right, from a journaling standpoint, right, but then there's also a functional component of that as well, and that's building brand assets, right, that you can put out into the market that are truly differentiated.
That's a interesting so you're telling your clients to write daily, like how no matter how short or how long, just journal about their experience and things they do and use that
That,
as part of their branding and
That,
marketing.
that's exactly right. Because believe it or not, our client sessions are often more like counseling sessions. They're really counseling sessions, and they're workshops. I joke with our copywriters all the time, right? That our clients actually get the branding. They pay for the branding services, right? But they get the counseling for free, right? Because the reality is that in order to get the brand out of you, right, to get the brand out of you, right, is a process of honesty and a process of confronting yourself, right, like nothing else, right? I mean, Jenny, I'm sure you relate to this, right? People have phobias of the camera. People have phobias of putting their own story out. People have phobias of really sharing the ugly side of the story. It's like, hey, look, I just want to put the good out. I don't want to put the bad and the ugly. But it's like, no, you need the bad and the ugly, right? Because that tension is what's going to hook our audience, right? That authenticity, right? It's actually what's going to draw our audience, right? If we just put out the polished whatever, right? Deep down inside, there's something in us that kind of recognizes that that's not the full story.
The issue
So to that end, writing as a process, it helps us all confront ourselves, right? It's also a steady act of stillness that makes us better and clearer thinkers, right? And that clear thought ultimately is like, I mean, that's the juice today, right? When it comes to branding, I mean, to the extent that we can get that clear thought, That's how you create something really beautiful. That's how you create something really impactful that's going to perform in the market.
I think people, and I love how you said that. I think in a lot of ways, people are still stuck on Instagram world, right? Show all the positives, even if it's fake. All the
Exactly.
positives. Don't really think of the drama part of the life where people actually attach to a lot more drama than they are to the fake positives. So I like that concept. I think it's a great way of just helping entrepreneurs. And as you said, it can be a stress reliever to get all those X that you have on paper and it's being used in branding. That's awesome.
Essentially, your authentic story is differentiation enough, right? So I think again, I think we're looking for sort of this magic bullet. Okay, here, everyone's losing their mind, artificial intelligence, machine learning, this, that. But it's like in the end, right? Janae is one of one, right? Like your experience is one of one. Your point of view on the market is one of one, right? And so to the extent that we can actually draw that out and put that out, right, in a consistent, measured way, right? That's all we need, right, to win in this market. And you don't need 100% of the market, right? You probably did your calculation already. Maybe you need 1%, maybe you need 0.05%.
Exactly. so so as this business landscape continues to evolve, right? What trends do you foresee in the field of branding and marketing, and how does Power by Q stay at the forefront of these developments to the best serve your clients?
Yeah, so I think we've spoken to the biggest trend, right? And that is again, I think the continual rise of the personal brand, the continual, essentially the era of storytellers, right? So I think who's going to win tomorrow, right? Who's winning now? Who's going to continue to win, right? Again, this superpower of articulation, right? The ability to sort of present your story, to present your company's story, right, in a clear, easy to understand, digestible, right, and impactful way, right, is going to be key, right? So again, there's a lot of anxiety, right, around the tech, right? But where I'm really looking to sort of direct my tribe, right, is to the spiritual and the timeless, right? And that is like, okay, the most human aspects, right, of like who we are, right? And that's our experiences, right? That bind us one to another, right? And the ability to sort of convey, amplify, articulate that experience, right, in a way that hits the client, hits the customer. And it's like, Janae is exactly who I've been looking for my whole life, right? So to the extent that we can continue to work on that superpower, I think we win.
Let's talk about podcasting, right? We both have
Yeah.
one. Has become a popular marketing tool for many businesses. How does podcasting contribute to the brand and marketing? And what advice would you give a business who's considering going towards this medium?
Yeah, so everyone should start one. No, maybe it's not that simple, right? What I'll say is that it's easier to start a podcast uh, now than ever before, right? So I think the barrier to entry, right, is getting lower and lower. On the flip side of that, right, as the market continues to grow, right, I think the challenge, right, to ensure that we're putting out quality and that we're being very intentional and thoughtful about studying our audience, understanding their needs, and framing the dialogue in a way that's valuable. I think is going to be key. Um, Podcasting is quickly becoming my favorite medium because it allows us to do exactly what we're doing, right? It allows us to go deep on the conversation level, right? And so when the conversations are good, when the conversations are rich, it's a win-win for everybody, right? It's a ton of fun for the guests. It's a ton of fun for the host. It's valuable for the audience, and then from a marketing standpoint, you get a percentage of that audience that raises their hand and says, "Hey, I want to work with Janae. Hey, I want to work with Obi," right? And so to that end, right, I think when we look at the economics of starting one relative to the output and the yield, it's probably going to be a no-brainer for most brands, right? But particularly anyone that's on the service side, right? I think it's a no-brainer, right? Because you essentially get to give a sneak peek, right, of your consultative style. And at the end of the day, I think when we're selling services, that's a big part of what we're selling, right? You're selling your consultative approach, right? And so if I can listen to Janae over the microphone, right, and I can say, okay, as clearly as he's communicating these ideas right now, that's exactly how he's going to communicate, the challenges that I'm looking to work through, right? The solutions that I need to activate.
So lastly, but certainly not least, how can people get in touch with you and how do they check out your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely, right? So www.poweredbyq.com. This is great timing. We're actually in the process of a rebrand in our own right. And so you're going to be seeing a very powerful refresh right over the next 2 weeks. I can be reached by email at obi@poweredbyq.com. There's also a link to our podcast on the website where you can stream our podcast in pretty much all the channels, right? Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And then our podcast videos are available on our YouTube channel, right? So we've released episode 1 right now, and episode 2 and 3 are in post, right? So you'll see those coming downstream shortly, right? And so, yeah, for anyone out there that's in the process of branding or rebranding or looking to integrate your brand in an impactful way when it comes to your marketing efforts, I'm the guy to work with, and I look forward to chatting with you soon.
Obi, again, thank you for the plethora of nuggets you dropped today. This was a great conversation, and we enjoyed learning more about Powered by Q and the work that you've been doing.
Thank you so much today. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
We sincerely appreciate you being a part of Right on the Money. Among the multitude of podcasts available, we're truly honored that you've chosen to listen to ours. If you or someone you know would bring valuable insights as a guest on our show, we invite you to access the guest request form linked in our show notes. We're always excited to connect with remarkable individuals. Remember, you have the power to share the gift of high-level business advice with the CEOs in your life. By spreading the word about our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, you help us reach a broader audience and create a more significant impact. Stay inspired, keep growing, and join us again next time for more insightful discussions.